So, good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Welcome to the London Food Network podcast, powered by Embrace AI Consultancy. I'm your host, Sebastian Candelon, founder of the Fresh Fish Shop and Embrace AI Consultancy, where we help food and hospitality businesses scale smarter with automation and AI. Today's podcast is about real conversations with people shaping the future of food, the innovators, founders, and creators who are transforming what and how we eat. Today I'm joined by Mark Celmer, founder of and CEO of Botaniline and BFY Proteins. Both companies are pioneering healthier, more sustainable food production. Botaniline has developed technology that replaces fillers and chemical additives in processed foods with natural plant-based ingredients, reducing sodium, improving nutrition, and maintaining the same great taste. BFY Proteins was created to center its focus on fava-based protein. I'm not going to pretend I know too much more than this. This is why Mark has gracefully joined our podcast today. So, Mark, please fill us in on what it is that you do and, very importantly, why.
You covered it all. It was a perfect introduction. Thank you. So, as you said, Sebastian, I am Mark Celmer. I started Botaniline. Here, I should have said I'm Mark Celmer in Buffalo, New York. So it is Eastern evening your time. I started Botaniline about 7 years ago in recognition of crisis that we have identified with school nutrition as well as elder nutrition. And Botaniline uses about 10 to 15% of a meat menu or a meat item, and we interject and apply a plant-based additive to that product. If you were to think of a hamburger patty or a sausage, a hot dog, we would typically use 90% of the meat that is used in that particular recipe and add 10% of a proprietary product that we call OBB. And it's plant-based, it's potato. And I can get into the science behind that if you're interested.
Yes, absolutely.
About
Because
a year
you've
ago.
just said a lot of words there, but in the end you said potato. So
Yeah.
is it a potato or is it a modified form of a potato?
Well,
Our listeners are not so well versed on this kind of topic.
well, there is food science around potato starch and potato flakes and dried potato and so forth. That's not our approach. We're not really trying to capture that component, the starch or the sugars of the potato. Every potato has its own chemistry, its own DNA. And the potato that we are typically working with, we know what the chemistry is, and we blanch it, we cut it into cubes, and then we subject it to a cooking algorithm of measuring temperature and time at those temperatures. And when the potato reaches a critical component in its metamorphosis, its change, we then stop the process, we isolate it, we freeze it, and hold it in a suspended state so that when it is then used and ground into the product by a manufacturer, it is ground and reaches temperatures of about 42 degrees Fahrenheit and awakens from its frozen state and starts extracting the protein from the meat block, regardless of the meat. It could be pork, beef, venison, seafood, poultry, any ground protein on the planet needs a certain amount of protein to be pulled from it to create a bind, a food glue.
Yeah.
The potato, typically a recipe will call for significant amounts of sodium to do that. Sodium salt would dehydrate and pull the protein and create that bind. Do not use sodium for that purpose. We use the potato to do all the enzymatic, all the extraction, all the pulling of the protein with the potato and capturing the food bind in that fashion. So the only salt we add is for flavor. As a consequence, products that you would be familiar with, say a hamburger patty. A typical hamburger patty will have about 480 milligrams of sodium. We can make that same hamburger patty with 80 milligrams of sodium.
Isn't it?
Just by taking out the amount of salt that you don't need. So our mission is to make those ground meats, those ground foods, substantially healthier for the consumer by lowering sodium, lowering saturated fats, lowering calories, and preserving the taste, texture, and protein content of that meal.
So let me get this straight. So essentially what you do is you use a potato and you dice it up in a way that you get consistency in the size, I guess, so that you can accurately get it to the right temperature and preserve it for later use. The reason for the temperature and the way you prepare it is so that it's at a certain molecular kind of structure, I guess, for it to then do its job when you then mix it in with the meat product that you're mixing it with. And for it to, at 42 degrees, it kind of switches on, extracts the protein and binds everything together, which at the moment, the kind of food industry uses a lot of sodium to do. Is that right?
Sebastian, you've captured it well. Let me, if I may, let me just sort of give you an example of conceptually how it works. If you think of an unsolved, all of the potato that we use, whether it's a small potato or a very large potato, is cut into a 3/4 inch cube. So all 6 sides of this cube are the same surface area, surface tension. So a
Yeah,
small
exactly.
potato might give you 20 cubes, a large potato may give you 60. When we subject those cubes, they're all of the same size, to the hot water bath and control temperature control and time. When that chemistry adjusts itself and gets to the precise combination of amino acids and phosphates and so forth that are part of the potato, we stop that process. We reawaken it when it reaches that temperature of 42 degrees Fahrenheit. And then when it hits the molecular, the sides of the meat block itself, the chicken or the beef or the pork or the venison, it pulls the protein to create that bind.
And so it's starch, right? Potato is known for the starch. So is the starch not the glue, or at least the bind?
No, it isn't. As a matter of fact, what we want to see is we want to see in the cooking process that starch go down the line. We don't, that starch is used for other purposes. We don't use it for our
Okay,
purpose.
interesting.
I mean, it's not thrown out. I mean, there are other purposes for the residual starch, but the starch is not what's critical to our success.
Okay. Now, it seems to me like a kind of no-brainer, really, because it's something it's not an allergen, obviously. You're reducing in quite enormous amounts, the amount of sodium in these products. Presumably you're reducing as well additives, preservatives, maybe? Is there less ingredients if I was, for this kind of meat production by using your product? What other ingredients are eliminated or reduced?
You know, it's actually fascinating that you asked that because we perfected our food science by coming up with the technical algorithm of temperature and time. It's all protected by trade secrets. We didn't go through a patent process. We could have, but we believe that trade secrets is a far better way for us to maintain our intellectual property. But when we started making hamburger, hot dogs, meatballs, anything ground, a chicken nugget, when we started making these with 10 to 15% of the OBB in the blend, we discovered that we could take out massive amounts of heavily processed and ultra processed chemical additives. So we can take out of a product, um, I won't name any particular company, but let's say there's a very well-known company that makes a phenomenal hot dog in the United States. Just phenomenal hot dog. Everybody loves it. Everybody knows it. That hot dog probably has 580 milligrams of sodium. It has 170 calories. It has 4 or 5 chemical additives, and it might have 6 grams of protein. We can make that product that tastes exactly like you would expect it to taste, but with only 235 milligrams of sodium, not 580, only 110 calories, not 170, and 7 grams of protein, not 6. In addition, we can take out sorbitol, which is not necessary. It's a chemically modified ingredient. We can take out potassium lactate. We can take out hydrolyzed cornstarch, which metabolizes into sensitivity around monosodium glutamate. And we take out sodium diacetate, which is a chemically modified pH lowering vinegar to create the shelf life. So this nationally renowned product has sodium diacetate, potassium lactate, hydrolyzed cornstarch, sorbitol, none of which are needed. And our equivalent of that is beef. Theirs is beef, water, in our case, OBB potato, spices, vinegar. That's all that's on the label, just 5 ingredients. We can eliminate a lot of heavily and ultra processed chemicals. That's our goal.
So, I mean, I always have to ask this question because, it seems like a no-brainer, right? I mean, I don't think there's anybody that doesn't like potato, for example. So it's not like it's not an ingredient that creates friction for the most part of the population. It's a fairly standard ingredient in cuisine all around the world, so it's quite popular. It's nothing that people wouldn't recognize on an ingredients list and kind of not think anything of it. It's reducing sodium and other additives, increasing the protein count, decreasing the calories. Why is this not everywhere?
Well, it will be. Sebastian, again, it's an excellent question. When you say it seems like a no-brainer, look, for centuries, countries like Germany or even Egypt have been putting potato into their meat products as a filler, as a way of bulking it up. But that potato only served one real function, and that was to create mass, create additional bulk. What the intelligence or the ingenuity comes by when you adjust that potato to do something more than just be a filler. So the interesting part about it is that a lot of inventions happen by accident. And this invention happened by accident, to be brutally honest with your viewers.
Well, you have to take us on that journey now then. Okay.
Well, very quickly, one of our founders, Joe Lopez, and our principal scientist, another founder, Dean O'Brien, and the OBB is after his name, O'Brien's Best. Joe and Dean were at a traditional British restaurant in Canada, and Joe was a traveling on the road salesman, and he said, "Dean, we're having bratwurst and we're having bangers and mash." That's what it was, bangers and mash, a traditional British,
Good
Scottish,
classic.
Irish, very classic. And Joe, being always on the road, said, "Dean, wouldn't it be great if somebody could combine the two so I don't have to, I could just eat on the fly. I'd have all of this flavor, all of this opportunity in one handheld product while I'm driving down the road." So Dean recognized that not only can it be done, but he also recognized that it had been done in the past. Again, German sausages often carried an ingredient potato or tapioca or starch or something. Well, Dean continued to work with various densities of the potato. And as he was working with the densities, he was noticing that the salt level on the taste panel was really high. So as he kept making these products, he kept lowering the salt, lowering the salt, lowering the
Uh-huh.
salt. And as he perfected that Rubik cube, that cube of OBB, it became evident that in certain recipes, we can drop salt by 95%.
Wow.
Our typical is we drop salt by 50%.
That's just
Well,
crazy.
this national hot dog. So over a period of 9 years, Dean kept perfecting the algorithm of measuring time and temperature, that equation. And think of it like a histogram where you've got an X and a Y axis and you have a straight line, and there are all these tests all over the place. When you look at the exact moment in time that Dean zeroed in on,
Mhm.
that became the science. So what's happening here in the States through a new administration, we have a well-known lifelong politician, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is taking over the reins of Health and Human Services. And his campaign in our country is called the MAHA movement, Make America Healthy Again. That movement couldn't
Mhm.
be better timing for us because everything we do is off the charts healthy.
So it's funny because I just going to circle back to what you're saying about the salt level. It's interesting actually because so what you're saying is as well is that the salt profile when you add the potato is much stronger. So as in the taste buds, if you like, react very differently to when the potato is present, even though technically it's the same salt level as if you didn't have the potato in there, and you wouldn't think anything of it. But the minute you start to create the product that you create, then all of a sudden that salt taste becomes much more obvious.
Well, no, I don't mean to be contrarian with you. Salt has two functions in a ground meat, ground protein. One is to extract the protein, and you don't taste that. It's there. It's doing its chemical adjustment. And that salt, you're not really tasting. You're
Is that being added, or is that part of the actual meat in the
No,
first place?
that's being added. That's being added. So again, a very popular worldwide quarter-pound patty, ground beef patty. It's in your country, our country, it's in Asia, it's all over the world. That patty, what holds it together is 480 milligrams of sodium. You're only tasting 80 milligrams, but you're ingesting 480.
But how does that work?
Your taste buds are, because when the salt pulls the protein and creates the bind, it no longer tastes salty.
Interesting. That's so fascinating to me. I mean, it might seem obvious to you, but
The chemistry is still there.
that's so revealing, really. And how many foods are we eating all the time in that case? Because if the salt is essentially hidden, and unless you look at the label, you would never know, would you? It's as simple as that. You would just never know.
We beg people to read labels.
Well, but you do. People do read the labels, but I don't think something like sodium, I don't think it's stated as a quantity. I think it might be stated as an active ingredient, but I'm not too sure whether it'll actually say, or maybe on the nutritional table, it might say there how many grams or
Well,
not. I don't know. I need to look at a label just to see.
sodium is measured in milligrams. So a case in point, one of our other products,
Yeah.
a peanut butter. I assume you have peanut butter all over the world, or most parts of the world. Typical peanut butter has 150 to 200 milligrams of sodium per serving. And a serving is 32 grams. That's 2 tablespoons.
But
It's not
surely that's
quite
not added on, because when I look at the ingredients for peanut butter, which I do, nothing I buy ever has salt as an ingredient in the ingredients list. But do you mean in the nutritional table, the natural salt content?
I'll give you an example. Oh, here we go. I'm sorry.
It's all right.
All right, here's a natural peanut butter. It's from the United States. It has 210 calories, and it has 90 milligrams of sodium. Most of the peanut butters in the United States are 150 to 200 milligrams of sodium. Our product has 40 milligrams of sodium.
Is this added, or is this part of
I'm sorry?
is this added, or is this part of the actual natural?
The peanut butter or the peanut itself?
Yeah, exactly.
It depends. A natural peanut butter that you would be familiar with,
Yeah.
one of your stores like Marks and Spencer, if you could just pour peanuts into a grinder and have it grind out peanut butter, you're going to have about 80 milligrams of sodium. Peanuts in and of themselves carry salt.
I'm looking at the label here for peanut butter I buy, for example. It says salt, 0.35 grams.
All right, 0.35 grams.
Sorry, 0.53. Sorry, 0.53, not 35.
All right.
0.53.
0.53 grams is, I think that's 530 milligrams.
Let's have a look. 0 in milligrams.
Convert grams to milligrams.
Oh, yeah, it's just tenfold, isn't it? So, okay, so it's 500.
Okay, so your peanut butter is 530 milligrams per serving.
No, this is per 100 grams. Sorry, this is per 100 grams.
Okay, all right, per 100 grams. Okay, then divide that by 3.
Okay.
So 500, you said?
Yes, it's about 160. No, 170.
Yeah, say 1740.
Wow.
So yeah, when you really look at labels like that, you're going to see that everything on that label can be improved without detracting from the quality or the taste or the flavor, the aroma that you're looking for. You remember I was talking about that hamburger patty, 180 milligrams of sodium. 400 of it is just out there pulling the protein to create that glue. You're not tasting that. The other added salt is for flavor. So what we do is we will put in 10% of the OBB to that patty.
Mm-hmm.
And by doing so, 10%, it creates the bind. And then we add 80 milligrams of sodium for flavor. And
Okay.
and what reads on that label is 80 milligrams, not 480, 80. Now, because we're taking 10% of the beef away, we're also taking 10% of the total fat, the trans fat, and the saturated fat. Because 10%, there is no fat in a potato. So we're able to drop calories, fat, sodium, and preserve the taste and flavor and the aroma.
Developing something like this innovative, can't have been easy, Mark. And you must have had some challenges along the way, because it seems like a pretty complicated. I mean, I know it's simple in kind of what it is, but the process of creating this as a business in particular must have been quite difficult and challenging, right? So,
Absolutely. Our
you
biggest
know,
challenge, Sebastian, our biggest challenge is fighting inertia.
mhm.
And by that, I mean the biggest of the big companies are moving at a glacial pace. They are all about quarterly earnings. They're all about shareholder satisfaction. And if I were to show the owner of the peanut butter that you were referencing, let's not name names. We'll call it UK's best peanut butter. If I were to go to the UK's best peanut butter and say, could help you reduce your 160 milligrams of sodium, and I could make it 10 grams of protein, not 7, would you be interested? And chances are they're going to say, no, we're not, because we're making everything and we're selling everything we can make. So the biggest obstacle I've had is not convincing people that it can be done, but convincing those large companies that it's in their best interests to do things differently. The other obstacle is a play on words. It's what's referred to as NIH, not invented here. When I went to a national hot dog manufacturing company and I talked to 6 of their PhD food scientists, and I proved to them that there's a better way of making their product, they wouldn't hear of it.
Right.
Not invented here. You can't possibly convince a scientist that has a mindset of their formulation, their recipe being the only best way to do it. It's very difficult to convince them that if you think outside the box, you might be able to come to a much better solution without destroying the box.
Mm. So
Now,
how do you get people on board?
well, you
How are you growing your business then? How do you
well,
get
first
through that barrier?
there are 2 things, in my opinion, Sebastian. There are 2 things that will cripple an entrepreneur. And this is a little off the subject, but the one thing that'll cripple an entrepreneur is to invent something really, really, really good, but there's no need for it. They create an idea, they invent a solution, and then they go looking for the problem to solve. That is absolutely the backward way of doing it. We've identified that we have a national crisis, we have an international crisis, a healthcare crisis, and I'll come back to that. But the second thing that will cripple an entrepreneur is if they don't maintain their passion and their vision and their purpose. So, how do we overcome inertia? One new customer at a time. And I will tell you that our solution to a national healthcare crisis could not have come at a better time, because child nutrition, our government nutritional, U.S. government, military,
Yeah.
FEMA, which is Federal Relief Efforts, American Red Cross, All of these incredibly powerful drivers of quality are insisting that sodium be reduced, saturated fats be reduced, calories be reduced, chemicals be removed, and sugar be reduced. That is brilliant. Europe and South America, Latin America are way ahead of the United States.
Mm.
You've got tighter guidelines and controls in your governmental regulatory bodies.
Still a lot of room for improvements, that's for
There's
sure.
still more room for improvement, but you're far ahead of the United States. Case in point, this is a very tragic statistic. There's a clinical diagnosis. I'm talking about food as poison right now versus our food, which is healthy medicine. But the healthcare crisis that we have in the United States is that 1 out of 7 children is clinically diagnosed as morbidly obese. Now, it doesn't mean they're fat. It means they're clinically morbidly obese.
Mm.
That clinical definition is you are 100 pounds over your expected weight for your age.
Blimey.
So take a somebody in grade 5 who's 9 or 10 years old, and let's say they're supposed to be 70 pounds. 1 out of 7 10-year-olds is 170 pounds.
Wow.
That breaks my heart. That's why I'm doing what we're doing. I'm trying to
Crazy.
save I'm trying to save a child from being bullied, from being morbidly obese. Morbid obesity drives type 1 diabetes. It drives heart disease. It drives kidney disease. It drives slower absorption, shorter attention spans, and curtails the learning opportunity of the child.
Mm.
It's awful. In the United States,
Unavoidable. That's the other one.
it
It's
is
very
avoidable.
avoidable.
In the United States, 85% of our population over age 65, 85% of the over age 65 are taking medicine for high blood pressure.
It's crazy.
It doesn't need to be that way. In the United States, 3 million children are taking medicine because they have high blood pressure.
Yeah, it's
So
scary.
we've
Scary.
identified a crisis, and we're tackling it head on by 5 ingredients: low
Mm.
sodium, low calories, high protein, high taste, high flavor. It's it's not enough to give kids something on their plate. If they don't eat it or it doesn't taste good to them, you're not helping the situation.
So, Mark, how can you? What are you doing to get to grow this business? Have you got the capacity to do more volume? Is it purely a case of just basically convincing the food manufacturers to adopt this? Is it a case of infrastructure to be able to reach all these people? Is it a case of being able to meet demand?
Sebastian, it's really all of that. And I'm not looking for an easy answer for you, but you've heard the expression of bottom up economics. You've heard of bottom up solutions. For me to go to the top manufacturers in the world, it could be Tani's in Germany. They're a massive manufacturer of ground sausage, ground proteins, mostly pork. It doesn't do me any good to go to the top of the pyramid and try and convince them. But I can go to the smaller companies that might be, say, the biggest of the big companies are 5 billion in sales. Well, I want to go to the $100 million companies and say, we're bringing you an entire school system of 5 states in New England or 3 countries in Europe. We've got the contracts to make quality food better for them. We want you to change your formula, your recipe, and we're going to sell you the OBB, and you're going to make those products, but you're going to make them substantially healthier. We're not taking the business away from you. We're helping teach you to do it better and cheaper. Everybody wins. That 90% hamburger is cheaper than the 100% hamburger with 480 milligrams of
Well,
sodium.
do you know, that was the next thing I was going to say, because of course food is it's a difficult industry with margins, right? It's a volume game at the end of the day,
It is.
especially with manufacturing. So is there a cost advantage or disadvantage for taking on this product?
There is a huge advantage for taking on our solution. The advantages are the OBB is priced at a third of the cost of the beef or the pork or the chicken. Now you're only using 10 to 15%, but it's still cheaper. The other thing that we're taking out are all those chemical additives. So you don't need them. So now you're giving the consumer a substantially healthier, clean label product that they're going to consume.
So what does the next kind of 6 to 12 months look like for you guys? I mean, how what's your kind of plan? Like, how are you gonna get more
Well,
people to adopt this?
let me segue, and I will come back and answer that question. I mentioned, I believe I mentioned at the outset that we are pioneering a list of products, a host of
Yeah,
products based on fava bean.
yeah,
Now, the way this bean is processed, all naturally, fractionated, and when we get the flour to make an allergen-free alternative to your peanut butter. So let's say you or your children or your spouse had peanut allergies, tree nut allergies. Well, you couldn't have that jar of peanut butter in your flat or in your home.
yeah,
But this is 100% allergen free. It's not made with soy. It's not made with sunflower seeds. It's not made with anything that would create an allergic reaction on the part of the consumer. So as a consequence, this product is off the charts healthier than the ingredient that 160,
yeah,
170 milligrams of sodium. This is 40. Your calories for your serving size is about 200. I'll bet anything on that. Could be 190 to 220. Ours is 120. Your protein per serving is 7. Ours is 10. So clearly,
yeah. 600 calories per 100 grams.
okay, and divide that by 3. So that's 300 calories.
No, 200. 200.
Oh, 246, 200. Yep, I was right. Absolutely correct. Here's the segue. What are we doing over the next 12 months? We are pioneering a methodology to use the power of fava bean and hemp, digestible hemp, to create new methods of making hybrid foods for the population. Now, what I mean by hybrid is our sausage, our hot dogs, our meatballs, our hamburger patties, everything we make on the Botaniline side is 80 to 90% beef or the meat block, 80, 90%, and 10 to 15 to 20% is the OBB. Now, if we add some faba flour plus hemp, now we can go to 60% meat, 30% what's called complete protein solution, the faba and hemp, and then 10% of the potato. We can make a much healthier product and reduce the amount of raised or grazed animals in the ecosystem. So our goal is to continually position ourselves to help feed the planet when we're 10 billion people. We don't need more cows, more chickens. We don't need less, but we need a better way of portioning them to the population we're going to be feeding.
Yeah, absolutely. Nice. I mean, it's incredible, really. I mean, the amount of innovation you guys are adopting and the solutions you're presenting kind of deserve a really good place in the food industry and soon, right? I mean,
And soon, I'll give you an example. You see these? These are high protein fava bean Dorito chips.
no, right?
Now you might call them crisps in the UK, chips. These are healthy snacks. We're all about health and elimination of ultra and heavily processed chemicals. And that's our bottom line. Food is medicine. Food that the United States has been giving its population has kept people ill. It's kept people on high blood pressure meds because of the salt. It's kept people lethargic because of excess saturated fat and trans fats. It's slowed down their metabolism with processed chemicals. We can reverse that. And that's our goal. And I think with what's going on with this Make America Healthy Again, I think that will become a worldwide opportunity.
Well, look, Mark, it's been very inspiring to hear from you and your journey, not just because of the technology, but because of the purpose behind it. I think making food healthier without sacrificing taste is something the industry desperately needs, and you've managed to bridge science and practicality in a really impressive way. What stood out most is how innovation like yours requires not just great ideas, but I guess some great systems as well to produce, market it, and well, hopefully scale it as well. Yeah, I kind of wish you all the best in reaching these customers because the message is clear. It seems to have no real negative points at all that I can think of, and saves money. So no brainer.
If I may, let me react to that. The craze of several years ago for meatless foods. And that craze hit the United States, it hit the UK, it hit Denmark. There are a lot of companies out there trying to give a meatless protein solution. But if you look at the amount of chemical additives to those products, there are unintended consequences. You can't, if you were a smoker and I came along and said, I'm going to save your life, I'm going to teach you vaping, what have I done for you? I've done nothing for you. You're going to die from the carcinogens of
Of course.
nicotine, or you're going to die from the carcinogens of vaping. The same thing with food. We can make it healthier. Now, I know it's a lot of words. It's easy for me to sit here and say that, but I would dare anybody to reach out to me and try their product, try our product. They won't be able to tell which one's which. And off the charts, independently verified, ours will be dramatically healthier. So
That's a
the
good
way to,
challenge there. I do hope our listeners are listening, and let's start the challenge. Let's see what we can do about this.
well, let me tell the listening audience how to reach me.
Yeah, absolutely. Please do.
The easiest way is through my email. It's at my last name, Celmer, at, and I will spell this, botaniline.com. Botaniline.com, meaning a line of botanical type solutions, plant-based solutions. So m.celmer at botaniline, just as it sounds.com.
And you can, of course, Google Botaniline, and you're kind of first up on there. I checked that earlier. So it's a good
Wonderful.
name because it's a very unique name, easy to find. Yeah, I mean, to everyone listening, make sure you check Mark's innovation app as soon as possible and have a look. And of course, you got Mark's email. Fire away any questions and let the challenge begin.
I would love it.
I'm Sebastian Candelon, host of the London Food Network podcast. And I also encourage anybody that has enjoyed this podcast to please like and subscribe and maybe share it with your friends, family, and loved ones and share the love. The London Food Network podcast is powered by Embrace AI Consultancy. And we'll see you on the next one. Thank you so much, Mark. I really appreciate your time.
Cheers.